episode of Crafting with Cosplay Fabrics. My name is Indra, and today I'm going to show you how to turn a regular styrofoam head into this. This is super cool if you like to display your wigs or headdresses or anything like that. It adds a little bit of flair and pizzazz to just a regular boring styrofoam head. Okay, so for the first part, we are going to be needing our styrofoam head form, saran wrap, and just regular scotch tape, just for packing tape, and a pair of scissors. I'll just use my craft scissors. One thing that I'd like to point out about the styrofoam headdresses is that a lot of them are, if you can tell, the head is a little bit tilted to the side. However, there are some that are completely symmetrical. They are easier to use, but the reason why I'm using this one is because this is the most popular, or the one that I have seen most cosplayers use, so that's why I decided it would be good for this tutorial. So, first thing that we're going to do is cover the styrofoam head with the saran wrap. Okay, so I have it all covered. So now I'm going to use tape to keep it in place. And I want to keep it as flush to the headdress as possible. Alright, so now that we have our head form looking like a scary mummy, I'm gonna start making the markings for the pattern, and I'm just gonna be using just a regular Sharpie. So what I want to do is mark all the way down the middle where the seams are going to be, and I'm going to create these little lines across also, which will be the notches. That way when I'm sewing the fabric, I know where to match them up. Then I'm gonna go ahead and cut the whole thing out. And I want to cut right where I did the main line. My goal is to have this be just two separate pieces. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut out the halves, and I went ahead and flattened one of them out. Obviously, because this is beveled, I do need to make some cuts so that it is completely flat. As you can see, it's a little bit messy, but I'm not worried because I'm going to be using 4-way stretch fabric. If you were using a non-4-way stretch fabric, then you absolutely need to have this like completely flat without any folds. But I also wanted to avoid having too many seams on the head. So what I did is one of the notches in the back I used as a guide, and just made a slit so that I could get pretty flat-ish form. And main thing is for the outer parts to be flat, you know, and that they're not puckering. And this way, that notch will still meet with this one. And the reason why I'm doing it this way and not drawing it out first is because, as I mentioned before, this head form is different on both sides. So I have to make it so that it at least the seams match, but that it doesn't have to be the same. Hopefully that makes sense. So the neck piece, as you can see, it's puckering out. So what I have to do is try to pinch it, and that'll give me sort of like a little triangle, and I will cut that out, and that will just be a notch. So there we we go. And again, I'm not too stressed about it because this is going to be done with a 4-way stretch. It looks kind of crazy right now, but there you have it. So now we are going to go to part 2, and I'm going to transfer these onto the fabric, sew it up, and put it on the head form. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut out my fabric, and what I did is I left about 1/4 of an inch all the way around, but the parts like right here, all the notches, I cut just straight flush onto the fabric. So the next step is going to be first sewing all the notches and then sewing both pieces together. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done the first part of the sewing, which is all of the notches. And for this I used my serger. If you don't have a serger, that's okay. You can just use a wide zigzag. And what I want to do now is match the notches so that they meet up, that way they look nice, and I'll sew it around. However, I will leave a little bit of a space, that way I can actually fit the head form into this, and I'll close it up just by using just hand stitching, that way it's super form fitted to the head. So I finished putting the 2 pieces together, and as you can see I left a little bit of space just so I could put it back onto the head form. And if you want to, of course, you can go back in and sew it a little bit more if you want it to be a little bit more taut, or any little areas that you feel that need any fixing. I went ahead and pinned it a little bit, like this is maybe like a 1/2 inch past the bottom. I just pinned it in place just so it'll make it easier for me to go ahead and close this seam up, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do that by hand. Alrighty, so I went ahead and just did a simple whip stitch and just to close that up. So what I'm gonna do now is remove these pins that I just set on this, and I'm gonna be using just some needle and thread, and I'm just going to do a small gather. So I'm just gonna go right on the edge just a simple running stitch, and what I want to do is just tighten that bottom part, that way it won't slip out and it'll stay in place. Right, once you reach the end, then you want to pull it as much as you can, and then just close that stitch up. And I do want to leave that little open area there, because if I ever want to remove this, that way it's just as simple as just taking off that stitch. And I do like to use a stand for my wig heads, so that's why I'm leaving this part open. Alternatively, you can do this plus put like maybe a piece of craft foam on top of it or something, that way it's like a nice clean finish. But there you go, that's the final look for it. Pretty cool to hold your wigs like this, huh? And there you have it. We turned a boring old styrofoam head into a really cool cosplay display piece. I hope that this helps you with your future cosplay, and that maybe this helps you have a really cool way of displaying your wigs, your headdresses, or anything like that. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. So, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week with another tip, trick, or tutorial featuring Cosplay Fabrics.